It's a couple minutes after 7. So this is a budget workshop, so it's not really an official meeting. We don't have an agenda for tonight, other than to welcome all of our guests for the kickoff of the fiscal year 2021 budget. And tonight, the purpose of our gathering is for the Board of Selectmen to receive the town administrator's proposed budget. And Kate is suffering or recovering from a broken wrist, so we're going to accommodate her and let her present to us from her location here at the dais rather than going down to the podium.
I appreciate that.
You bet.
A little worried about whacking it.
Mm-hmm.
So first I want to talk to you about the document itself. I know this is pretty new to 3 of you, but we've made some changes to the document. In the very beginning of the budget, you now have the executive summary. This is a new addition to the book this year. We will have copies. There's no press here, but we made copies for the press and giving them at the end of the meeting. It'll be posted on the town's website tomorrow. It's a summary of what you're going to find in the document. We numbered the tabs this year, and we put line numbers next to all of the accounts.
Right.
You will see the proposed full-time equivalents shown on each department's budget page. We've rolled up the full-time equivalent and personnel cost information to the department level. Last year we had it with, some departments have multiple divisions. Last year we had it by division, but this year it's all rolled up. So like with police and public works in particular, it's all rolled up to the department level. And then last, I just want to point out to you that the full 6-year capital improvement plan is the last thing in your budget books this year. So I just want to give a refresher on what our process is. The department heads are giving guidance and a refresher on the use of OpenGov, which is our budget software, in the fall. We asked them this year to try to hold the line on any increases, but if they felt there was something they needed to implement a new program or invest in a new asset, they should ask for it. I'm a firm believer that if there's something you really feel we should have or do, you should ask for it. And if we say no to you this year, if it's really important, ask again next year. We'll never know if the people don't ask. Doesn't mean they're going to get it, but we want them to ask. The department has then entered detailed information supporting their budget in OpenGov as well as in the commentaries. Most but not all of the budgets are built from zero. For the selectmen, in the back of your books, in that little pocket, there's a few pages, looks like this. We wanted to highlight for you some of the detail, just to show you the kind of detail that goes into it. So I picked out a few accounts, and Jen printed out the detail. So police full-time salary. Outside of debt service, that's one of our largest line items in the budget, $3.8 million. Every single police officer in patrol is listed here. Their longevity, if they get it, their educational stipends, if they get it, their step increases. So that $3.8 million, there's not guessing there. That's all detailed information. I included the detail on patrol overtime because that's one of our hot topics in the past. It's something we've worked very hard to be able to project for you by clause what generates the overtime. Medical insurance. We identify every employee. We look at the employee census, who's got what medical coverage now, what percentage of the premium do they pay next year, what percentage do we think the insurance rates are going up, and then what new employees are we proposing to hire. We make an estimate of what coverage they'll take, and so we budget it. Like I said, you can see it's down to the dollar. We're not taking last year's number and just adding 3% or adding 5%. We're building these budgets from zero. And then a small account, just kind of picked at random, the senior center facility and maintenance account, just to show you the level of detail that we're providing. We don't provide you a printout of all this because it would double the size of your books, okay? But it is available, you know, anything, when we're here working on the budget, we will have the computers, or Jen will, and we'll be able to go and look at the detail and provide you any level of detail you want. I am harping on it a little because I think it's important that people understand the level of thought, the effort, the detail that goes into preparing this budget. So in early January, Jen and Jamie and I meet with each department head to review their budgets. After that, I make several passes through the budget, making adjustments. I want to note for you that I don't look at the bottom line until I've been through the budget, gone through and done multiple reviews. My reviews include comparing the request to the current year budget and to the prior year actuals for reasonability. You know, if I see something that is a high percentage increase over prior year actual, I then go back and look at that account and determine, you know, is this reasonable based on where we are 6 months through the year? Is it reasonable based on where we were 2 years ago? Was last year a fluke? So we go through, can't say we go through every account like that, but I run a report that highlights ones that do need to look at. And just as, you know, as I'm going through the budget, I'm not looking to fit it into a predetermined range. I'm looking to build a budget that meets our needs and fulfills our obligations. As you begin, I suggest to you, you should be doing something similar. This is a policy document. It's not just a spending plan. It's a plan to deliver services to the taxpayers. You should be looking at what services do we deliver? Are there services that we should deliver but we don't? What value do we place on services, the ones that we deliver and the ones that we'd like to but we don't currently deliver? Are we delivering our services in the most cost-effective, most efficient manner? What are the short and long-term costs of delivering the services we do or not delivering other services? So typically, the Board of Selectmen focus is on the plan. The Board of Finance focus is how to fund the plan. That's not to say that it's not appropriate to talk about revenues, but that's more the Board of Finance job. So let's talk about the actual budget. And I'm not going to talk about the bottom line. You might have already gone to the bottom line, but we're not going to start there. I think, and I don't want to start there because I feel it's important to evaluate some of the larger items that are out there on their merits, not on what they do to the budget. One of the bigger changes, bigger impacts in the budget this year is in the pension plan and the OPEB plans. OPEB being other post-employment benefits, mainly retiree medical. Our pension committee voted to make 2 important changes to the assumptions that we use in the valuation. The first is a new mortality table being implemented. It's based on public sector employees. That didn't exist in the past. This is the first time that there's actually, yeah, true. Kip is looking at me like that.
Are you kidding? No.
This is the first time that there's actually a mortality table that just looks at public sector employees.
Okay.
And there are 3 tables within that, one for public safety employees, one for teachers, and one for the rest of us. The upshot, public sector employees have a longer lifespan, which causes a higher liability for the plan, which increases the actuarially determined contribution. It is important that the pension board voted to adopt this, and it's important that we adopt this. It will be expected by our auditors, and it will be expected by the rating agencies as best practice. The pension committees also voted to reduce the investment earnings assumption. It's been at 6.5 for a number of years, and this budget assumes dropping it to 6.375. The actuary's recommendation is that we drop it in increments to 6% over 4 years. This 6% more closely aligns with our investment experience. So the increase to the budget as a result of these policy changes is about $665,000 for the town. And I do want to point out, this policy change also affects the library grant, the sewer and parking funds, and the Board of Education budget. Second big impact is addition of the third shift of dispatchers. Last year, we added the second shift, which was the evening shift, going to 3 dispatchers, which puts 2 dispatchers on duty for the full shift. So with this proposal, we would have full civilian dispatch. That's the one that's going to be a big thing to talk about. I'm going to discuss some of the stuff a little bit later, but one thing that it would allow us to do once they're in place, once they're trained, we could bring back the fire dispatch in-house. All in, talking benefits, all that stuff, the cost impact is approximately $300,000. Medical insurance. This is my favorite one. Our worst case scenario is that we will have a 0% increase in the medical insurance.
Worst case.
Worst case. The employee share of the premium is increasing in accordance with bargaining agreements, which reduces the town cost. It's not huge, but the estimated reduction at this point is $137,000. That's if our, assuming we don't do actually better than 0.
Kate, when will we have that number? When we have the
We may not have the final numbers till after even the Board of Finance does their budget, but we would hope to have it narrowed, the focus narrowed, by the time the Board of Finance is working on the budget. And I just do want to caution, we had a positive year after some bad years. Don't expect that every year. Then perhaps definitely the biggest change to the budget is a reduction in debt service. The Board of Finance redeemed some bonds last year, and then this budget proposal includes a recommendation for a new debt issuance. The net result of the redemption and the new debt is a budget reduction of almost $1.5 million in fiscal 21. And I would caution you, when you're looking at your budget, don't compare the proposed budget to the revised budget for debt. In all other cases, you should be looking at the proposed versus the revised, but in this instance, because accounting-wise, the funds to do the redemption had to be put in last year's budget, or the current year's budget. The current year's budget is inflated. So if you're going to do a comparison year over year, look at the original budget on the debt service. The library grant is another large increase. It's up $249,745, and I really can't, I received the detail just tonight, so I have nothing to comment on that. Capital is, the request is going up about $271,000. That represents town projects only. As we go through the budget reviews, if I put forth a proposal for capital items for a department, we'll talk about it the same night we talk about their operating budget, and then we will circle back to the capital budget as a whole at the end of the process. Some of the things that I'm proposing we fund are upgrade to town hall heating controls, which, yeah. Converting the Norotan Fire Department from, they're on oil now to natural gas. Funding our various vehicle replacement plans. There's some software improvements, software needs at the police department, planning and zoning, and in finance. Paving is the biggest one, sidewalk rehab, and some new sidewalks. It's not a comprehensive list, but those are just some highlights. So the bottom line, this proposed budget is $47,875,998. It's an increase of $135,310, or 0.28% over the fiscal 20 adopted budget. Based on preliminary grand list information, due to an increase in the grand list and with the limited increase in expenditures, this budget proposal standing on its own, just this part, would result in reduction in that portion of the mill rate that's solely attributed to town operations. So you could just vote yes and go home.
Great.
To cut the mill rate by 0.01 mils. So right now we're at 16.47. So to go down to 16.46, you need to cut in increments of 85,000. So 0.01 mils is 85,000. And just as a reference point, the town side of the budget is less than a third of our total spending. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't scrutinize it carefully. I just want you to realize that I want to put it in perspective. The last thing I wanted to talk about is the future. If you approve the addition of the 3 dispatchers, one of our future discussions will need to be how to best deploy our police personnel and the police personnel budget going forward. The fire departments. We're asking a lot of volunteers in terms of the administration of budgets on top of the time they take to train and operate at emergencies. And it's important that the fire departments, like all the departments, be good stewards of the taxpayer dollars that they've been allotted. However, I get more and more concerned that they don't have the time or the skill set to do so. And I think in the future we may need to look at some form of paid administration for the fire departments. Taking that a little further with the town. As the town continues to try and maintain or improve our services with relatively static resources, the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and RTM are more and more seeking to make decisions that are driven by data. It's challenging to collect and evaluate the data in many instances. So, I struggle sometimes with how do we address this? Should we consider changes to our management structure? Should we reconsider the qualifications for department heads? Should we be looking at some staff position to fill that need? We hire staff with expertise in certain areas, usually in a specific area, and their skill set, it's great in that one area, but their skill set may not include what's needed to collect and evaluate the data. So that's something I think we're going to need to be addressing in the future. And how best to manage our software and technology continues to be a discussion topic. In some departments, we're fortunate right now to have employees with the talent and the desire to be that go-to guy for technology outside of our IT staff. We may not always be so fortunate, and we'll need to consider if the current manner in which we provide our technology support is the most effective. So that's kind of it. We're about to undertake a heavy meeting schedule. It's one of the most important jobs you do as selectmen. I've been working on municipal budgets for over 30 years. Nearly 20 of those are here in Darien. I may skip through some things sometimes, or I may use acronyms, or I may use terminology that you're not familiar with. If I do, stop me, ask me, stop Jen, ask us. Questions are a good thing. It's how you're going to learn, and I encourage them. That's it.
That's excellent, Kate. Thank you very much. Hopefully, the media that's here heard that Kate is proposing a 0.28% increase in the Board of Selectmen budget. Have you ever gone through the exercise of looking at what the portion of the mill rate that's attributed to our budget, how much that is?
Yes. I don't have the numbers in front of me. It's, if I remember correctly, in fiscal 20, it's 4.63, and this as proposed would be 4.44. Jen did give me the numbers, but I didn't put the specifics down.
Great, thank you. I'd also like to add, we were having a conversation earlier that there are certain items in the capital budget that might be reasonable to request from the Board of Finance that they either consider wrapping them into a new bond issuance or perhaps funding some of these capital requests out of reserves, general fund reserves. So we'll make sure that that's part of our presentation to the Board of Finance when we get to that standpoint. But that would serve to further reduce the Board of Selectmen budget.
And we do identify a few possible
Yes.
in the executive summary.
Yep. So does anyone have any questions this evening generally on Kate's summary? I know we're going to dive right into the detail tomorrow. Yes.
Just in general, when you were discussing the idea that departments come through when they're making their ask, and you're saying to ask because even if it doesn't, do you call at that point? And if so, is there a way to know what you called?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Just so, I can hear that it's coming, and you'll share that, but just so we, like major, maybe sort of bigger.
But they've been asking for them for 4 years.
Right, that it hasn't gotten to this point. Is there a
I
way
can
for us
tell
to
you-
get that?
Yeah, I don't think that there's anything in here that there was any request that people have been asking for a long time that I keep saying no to. I had said no to the basketball court at Cherry Lawn for a couple of years. Was actually ready to say yes if it came up this year. It didn't come. What came up this year was to take out the one that exists, but not to put in a new one. There have been no personnel requests on an ongoing basis with the exception of the dispatchers, which I do believe in. I think we need to do it. I think we train police officers to be police officers. They should not be sitting in the dispatch center. And not to knock our police officers. They're not trained to be dispatchers. We should put people in there who are trained to be dispatchers and deploy our police personnel to do what they've been trained to do.
We'll get
But,
into.
I can give you a whole compass.
Yeah, if you,
Yeah.
Sorry, I did not expect an answer tonight, just if that's something you could bring.
We'll get into more detail when we talk about the police budget and the dispatchers, but are we at full staff for the 6 dispatchers that we've already funded?
No, we should be soon, but we
Okay.
had one, we were at full staff and then one resigned and they were doing interviews about a week or 2 ago
Okay.
for replacement.
Okay. Any other questions for Kate tonight? Okay.
At some
Oh,
point,
sorry.
at some point, whether, I don't know if tonight is appropriate to do it, or if you want me to come in and you can give me a teach-in session separately. But I'd like to understand a little bit better about the reserve funds and what gets paid out of which fund. Because when I just read some of the language, not having dug into this deeply before, right? You have the RFC RNE fund, right? And then at the Board of Finance, there's also a capital contingency fund, right?
So what you're calling the capital contingency, it's an account within the RFC NRE.
Oh, so that's
Just
all
so you know,
part-
the tab this year, it says capital, we didn't call it, the proper name of the
Okay.
fund is the Reserve for Capital Non-Recurring Expenditures. So that's where the RFC NRE, that's the fund. The capital contingency is an account within that fund.
So then the Board of Finance contingency is an account within the general fund?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Well, that takes a bunch of stuff off my list.
Kip, you had a question?
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful for people, at least looking in from home, to understand that with mostly union employees, what does STEP really mean? So people understand what the influence of STEP is on the whole process.
So do you just mean, what does it mean dollar-wise, or do you mean like?
No, dollar-wise. I mean,
Okay.
I don't mean give me a dollar, but it means that somebody basically is entitled without.
Okay, so without.
Just serving time,
They
they get a
serving
shot.
time. Depending on the union, there's different numbers of steps. The police
Right.
have 5 steps for patrol officers, 3 for sergeants, 2 for lieutenants. There might be 3 for lieutenants. The town hall union, I think they have 8 steps, and the public works union is 7. I might have reversed that. So what it means, we typically hire you at step 1. The theory is that you are learning and growing in your job, and as you learn and grow in advance, you should get something extra, right? So every year, either on their anniversary date or on July 1st, depends on the contract, in addition to the agreed upon increase in the grid, you move up a step. So the whole grid every July 1 moves up by whatever the agreed upon increase. So say the increase was 2.5% on the grid. Then the steps are a certain percentage apart. So an individual who is moving up a step gets significantly more than that 2.5%. Once they hit the top step, they max out and they only get the amount the grid goes up.
The reason I think it's important to mention that is because many of the taxpayers have not been exposed to union contracts. And most of our people are unionized, whether it be
Yes.
public works, police force, or town employees.
Yes,
And certainly at the Board of Education, the same way.
Yes.
And the other thing I'd just like to ask you about in just top line general, you mentioned that we're adopting a mortality table
Yes.
for government workers. In other words, we never had one before.
We used a mortality table that was generic, was, included private sector
Right.
employees.
But this is more specifically
This is
directed.
more specifically to, yeah.
And obviously, to avoid the problem the state got into, we're trying to get our mortality table correct as quickly as possible, and then bring our investment rates down
Right.
to a reasonable level.
Yeah, and it's the right thing to do, because once you learn that mortality table, the studies that they did to develop it showed that public sector employees live longer.
Right.
That means our liability, basically you were underfunding your liability if you used a corporate or private sector mortality table.
Right.
We always have fully funded, it's now called the ADC, the actuarially determined contribution, as opposed to the ARC, which it used to be. But we've always fully funded that amount.
No, I know you've always fully funded it, but just now we've got better information as to what our mortality table.
Yes.
I mean, these are big time things. And moving gradually from, was it 6 point
We're
something
at 6.5.
percent?
Yeah.
6.5.
Down to
to-
6%.
down to 6,
For
that's-
5 years is a
Yeah.
big number.
That has a big impact.
It does, the mortality table is the bigger impact.
Really?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Worthwhile knowing. And then finally, since much of the benefit this year in budgeting is the reduction in our
Debt service.
debt service, that's happened a couple of times, hasn't it?
Not in this manner. It's happened in the past because of the natural schedule
Of
as
pay
debt
downs.
matures.
Yeah. This was an early pay down, I realize,
Yes.
arbitrage. Okay, but maybe we should think of this at times in terms of, okay, what is the real impact rather than looking at debt service? Because that's a management change or management choice. So what are my real cost increases other than
Yeah.
benefit of debt service?
Well, and
Okay.
that's why I said, I didn't want to start off with what the bottom line was, because, honestly, it doesn't matter that we've got that big decrease. We could be coming in, say they'd refunded even more and we were coming in with a negative
Right.
budget. You still have to look at those things. You still have to look at the proposals and decide if it's the right proposal.
Right.
You
No,
have to decide if that's the right way to operate the town. I do believe it is. But you have to look at those civilian dispatchers and say, is this the right thing for the town? It's a policy decision. It's not just a budgetary decision.
Agreed.
Correct.
That's all I had.
Thank you.
I had a question, picking up on Kip's point. When we're looking at, $47.9 million, picking up on the whole idea of the steps, what of that is contractual? Like, what is discretionary? So I think that also helps.
Yep.
We can come back with that number, so we understand what we're really working with in many respects, too.
Unfortunately not, there's not a lot.
Right.
that's discretionary.
Right, but
But,
to the point, that's also, so the public knows too.
yeah.
Yes.
I think that's helpful, thank you.
Any other questions for Kate from the board? Okay, we have members of the Board of Finance and F&B here tonight. Do you have any general questions for Kate this evening on her proposed budget?
Can I just compliment you on the project requests? I think this is fabulous.
I'm
On the
sorry,
capital project request summary sheets, it's actually amazing. Fabulous,
Jen,
Yep.
fabulous to be able to go through this way. Makes it so much easier.
Good.
On Stoopnagel F&B, so Nicholas Road. Since Jack is not here, I'll have to fill in for him. I see that the financial accounts are becoming the dominant drivers of the budget versus the operations account, both in the investment income as well as on the capital side. So I encourage you to give us as much information as you can give us. For instance, it says there in the book that the investment income is driven by the cash flows as well as the federal funds rate, and we would like to know how was that calculated. On the capital side, the bonds that will be issued or not issued and how that is all structured would be of great interest, because that is what is driving this budget to a large degree. Thank you.
Any other questions for Kate? Krista?
Just picking up on your comments on the library, I see we have our package here. Will we just wait until another night where we'll go into more detail on that, or is it appropriate now for them to
They'll be
comment?
here Wednesday night.
Okay, fair enough, okay, fine.
Okay. Hearing no other questions, then our first budget workshop is closed, and we will be here again tomorrow night. I believe it's tomorrow night, 5:30?
5:30.
5:30 PM here. And I think you'll be able to find online the budget centers that we're going through. Maybe
Yeah.
you'd like to review it, please?
We will be doing general government and planning, other community like beautification, harbor master. We'll be doing the building department, human services, the senior center, youth services, and health, which is should be the human services tab.
Great. Okay.
The bigger ones are Wednesday night. Those are big departments.
Okay, thank you all very much for coming this evening, and we will look forward to seeing you at our budget workshops going forward.